Good morning. Happy New Year. It's Monday the 6th of January, 2025. And I'm back from a whirlwind trip to the East Coast and a big fancy wedding in Rhode Island. And yeah, I'm glad to be starting the new year. I feel a new energy around this year, a new commitment to really using time wisely to awaken, to put away old concepts and self-concepts, and to commit to reminding, that's a great word, reminding myself about who I am and who I'm not. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about obtrusive, obsessive compulsive type thoughts. Perhaps you could call it that. But obtrusive, really insistent, demanding, persistent thoughts, and maybe give you another idea about how to hold them, because these are the thoughts that are causing our suffering, the ones that I'm talking about. These are the ones that are keeping us locked in the past. These are the ones that are chaining us to guilt and shame and fear, and these are the ones that we obviously need to have a new relationship with in order to let them go and have them be undone for us. And the other thing I think is important is if the astrologers and all the channelers and other spiritual texts are correct, it's possible that the year we're heading into is going to require us to be with that energy even more than normal, or at least it'll seem like that, because there, in the same way that there is an individual awakening process, many, and I'm one of them, feel there's also a collective awakening process. And so we're going to be more than ever surrounded by our unmet energies and triggers and past grievances and pain. So probably if you're listening to this podcast, you have some kind of a practice, or you know something about awakening, you know something about healing, if you call it that. So I don't feel like I can, in this segment, give an overview, really. I've kind of hinted at things in the past few episodes. So I want to just kind of start where I start today and talk about, as these energies come up, what's the best approach. And I don't think there is one approach. I think there are many approaches. And that gets to another point that I have been really feeling for the last few years, which is there isn't a spiritual path for everyone, in the sense of one path that multiples follow. There's actually as many spiritual paths as there are people or beings that are needing or wanting to awaken. So what I mean by that is that even if you are a Buddhist, or even if you are a Course in Miracles student, or a Christian, or whatever it is that you follow and practice, your steps will be unique for you, and the things that come to you that are helpful could even come from some other discipline. And I would encourage us all to feel very free-flowing and follow the things that resonate, and try them. Be the scientist in your own life. Experiment and see, does this help? And instead of following guides, whether they're spiritual guides or human guides, teachers, mentors, or something that you read, instead of so strictly adhering to those sources, turn first within to your own teacher. And your own teacher is the one that knows exactly your highest, quickest path. And the rest of the messages and transmissions that you're exposed to, those are helpful when you're guided to them from your own teacher, because you can consider them now a language that your teacher will be using to speak to you. But that way you can feel very free. And I really feel so much that this time is about becoming sovereign. I've used that word, and I'm going to probably use it a lot, because we have bound ourselves up and chained ourselves down. And this awakening is a liberation from what we thought we were, what we thought the world was, what we thought reality was, liberating ourselves from that. And that includes liberating ourselves from the top-down religious, spiritual power authority. That we are the power. Each and every one of us are power. We are the I am, the Christ, the Buddha. And so beginning to trust that and exercise that in your life is a very important part of the time that we're in. So back to energies that may be coming up in this time that trigger you. You and I, we all have our core issues. And it's tempting when they come and smack us to start blaming ourselves or to blame others, because often they include others or situations in the past or things that are seemingly outside of our control. And what I want you to do first is, with a little corner of your mind, and maybe you write this down somewhere, you remember that everything is happening for me, not to me. That even our worst experiences are somehow potent teachers for us. And when we get to the other side, we will love them. You know, if we're overweight, we will love our weight. You know, thank you for helping me. When we get to the other side, because we won't see it through our eyes of fear and separation and guilt and shame, from a healed perspective, we see only the grace, only the helpfulness of that teacher. In the Course in Miracles, it says that the Holy Spirit, which is the awakened mind that is serving us, it says that it teaches through contrast. And I know for myself that I've had to have a lot of experiences of contrast, meaning I've had a lot of pain, you know, things that just caused me a lot of inner turmoil, unrest, resentment, envy, self-blame, self-loathing, definitely a lot of self-loathing and unworthiness. And I really feel like all of us are in some process of dealing with these things, and that we can be really open about that. And that it's our openness that actually helps us to become free of them. So, but the reason I'm bringing it up now is that those moments of darkness that can feel very, very dark and despairing, we can be very despairing in them. When used as a classroom of some kind, where we are surrendering somehow, we are opening to a higher thought, we are opening to a letting go, we are opening to a good question that can cut to the root of the matter. You know, one of these self-inquiry type questions, a contemplative question. Is it true? When we open to that, and when we finally feel released of it, maybe not forever, maybe it will cycle back, but the contrast experience is so significant that the peace we feel compared to the darkness that is so fresh in our memory is a tremendous engine for the awakening motivation, the process that we're in. And so, you know, there's a kind of an adage in AA, as I understand it, that, you know, you don't want to prematurely save a drunk from his bottom, you know, the gutter, so to speak, because it's that experience of hitting rock bottom, and maybe more than once, but ultimately it's that experience that gets people to choose again, that gets people motivated to be on the path. So we're all in that until we're not. We're all in that uppy, downy kind of graph, you know, this jagged up and down with lots of peaks and valleys, but overall, the trajectory overall is up. Even though when it's dark, it can feel just as dark as it ever did. So I want to talk about, okay, we're in a dark spell. I've been hopefully making a pitch for how to hold that dark spell as a classroom, and, you know, how from the awakening perspective it's absolutely needed. For most of us have to have that. There have been some dramatic examples of people who either did it in one fell swoop, like blackness, blackness, blackness for decades, and then pop, like Byron Katie or Eckhart Tolle. Or there's other stories where people may have not had so much blackness, like Robert Adams, and he woke up when he was in junior high school, I think, in a math class. So he was clearly a very advanced being when he got born, and he had, you know, a very short time with the illusion being so real. But most of us are not like that, and that's okay. We're all going to make it, and whatever is happening for each of us is the best thing for us. So bless your path right now. Just bless it. Thank you for all these classrooms that I have, these relationships, this problem with money, this problem with health, this problem with some kind of self-esteem issue, or, you know, power problem, or whatever it is. Bless it to the extent that you can authentically. And that means, like, welcome it, accept it, and have a little corner, at least in your mind, that says, I know this is happening for me. Okay, so now dealing with the energies. We were talking about this in a group, and I'm part of my Reiki mentoring group, but you know, it's like we have to cross the water when these things come up. We have to cross the rocky waves or the rough waves, and we're in a boat, and there are more than one oars in this boat. So I'm going to talk about the oars, okay? If you only use one, it may not be that helpful. It may have been helpful last time, but it's not helpful now. And that's why we need multiple approaches. And so sometimes when things feel really juicy, painful, the most valuable way I know to deal with it is to feel it. But the feeling is predicated with a purpose of allowing and healing. Okay, so sometimes I say you just welcome it into your home, into your mind, and you tell it to do its worst. Do your worst: anger, fear, grief, frustration, self-loathing. Do your worst. And when you're in that relationship with that energy, you can ask it too, do you have a story to tell? Is there something I need to hear? And maybe it's, they never loved me enough, or maybe it's, I'm not worthy. Or maybe it's something like, if they knew who I really was, they'd be horrified. I am a horror. It's something really dark and awful like that. So you listen to it. Instead of pushing it away, these are the times that you listen to it. You let it be felt. You use whatever tools you have to be with it in an open way. And you may have Reiki like I do. You may have a friend who will hold space for you. You may have a spiritual text or a connection to your teacher, your inner teacher, or to spiritual guides or angels. But you do it with that light in your mind represented in some way. And that light can be represented by someone else. It's still your light. And you just allow it. And you might have to be there for hours with it. And somehow there's an alchemy that begins to happen. There's this feeling of, that I use a lot when I talk to people. I'm the sky and this is the storm of the century and it can move through, but I'm the sky and I will be here. Will be here when it's over. See, this is, I'm prior to this storm because I can be aware of it. So it can't be me, because when it comes and when it goes, I'm still here. Before it came, I was here. But every time we allow it and we listen to it, that helps it move. It's like energy that needs to move. Every time we allow it, it can move, and it is lessening in our energy field. It's being weakened somehow. It's like alchemy, turning straw into gold, turning fear into love. It has, when we have no defense against it, then it can't stay. And as it tells its stories, it's important to realize that's fear talking. That's hurt talking. That's ego talking. And to not judge it, but to not analyze it or justify it. That's not what's needed here. What's needed here is that you be with a part of yourself in a compassionate way. And it's not about the truth of the story. It's true to that energy. And that's all you need to know. But you're vast. And so this is somehow like a unification of this energy that is you. You've had all these separated off aspects of yourself, and they need to come home to you. To you in your power, in your I am, in your Christ energy. They come home to you. And in that union, without the past, without judgment, without defenses, there is peace. That's all that's left. And it can be very helpful to tell your story to yourself by telling it to someone else, or writing it in your journal if you haven't done that. Getting it out on paper. Just don't try to make it make sense or be spiritual. Just get out the raw energy of it. So that's one oar of your boat. So the other oar of your boat that I would like to suggest anyway is something that has helped me a lot as well. Both of these have. But sometimes what I'm feeling as a compulsive or intrusive thought, I know is already chewed gum. That's what I like to say. There's just an intuition about it. It isn't for now to go deep dive into this energy. It's been done. But it's like an artifact of the ego. And the ego just doesn't give up. So the ego is going to remind me of this person, this situation, this problem, as a way to tempt me back into the ego thought system. Especially, by the way, when I'm doing well, when there is progress being made, when I'm feeling more peace, when I'm following my truth and being authentic and, being an honest expression of the truth in myself. Especially then, the ego is going to smack me. It's like a rubber band that gets stretched out and then snaps back. That was Ken Wapnick. So we stretch, but it's still within us. We're still somehow choosing it at some level. And so it still has some power over us. And that's fine. It's this teasing it out process that awakening for many of us requires. So in these cases where it's an artifact of a situation or a relationship I've dealt with, then I like to just use it as a reminder, oh, I'm dreaming. I've fallen into a dream rabbit hole. And I know what that rabbit hole is all about. I've been in it. I know it well. And it never resolves. It just recirculates. And I don't need to go there. There's no... And this is purely intuition. You can just feel, at least for now, maybe it won't be the same way tomorrow, but at least for now, it's just an engine light on the car dashboard, I say. It's saying, pull the car over, check your mind, and step out of the dream. You're in the dream. And I always use an example of when I had, 15 years ago, or even 10 years ago, I would worry obsessively at times about my kids. And I began to see that they were like the ego's red hot trigger button. I was like a walking red hot trigger button. Push this button and when you do that, I'll have a thought about my children, and that will completely throw me into the ego's clutches, where I will be feeling like I haven't done enough for them, that they're in danger, perhaps that I'm causing them harm by things that I'm choosing to do with my life. And that would throw me into this whole history of my life again and how I got where I am. And it was just like off to the races. And that button was just always there for the ego to push, especially when I was really working hard to follow my heart and to divest myself of the ideas that would be projected onto me. And so I'll tell you a funny story that helped me so much, actually. When my son was about 7, he had so many vivid dreams, and he actually wasn't really sure when he was that age whether he was dreaming or not. And even in real life, sometimes he would wonder, am I dreaming? And so that was a very interesting thing to watch about him. And one time he was explaining this phenomenon that happened. And he said, but I figured it out, Mom. When I'm dreaming, I look out the window and I know that if I see a pink car, then that means I'm for sure dreaming. And I thought, well, that's so clever. And it worked for him. If he was dreaming, he would inevitably see a pink car or something else, and that would be his signal. There were maybe other things that he could use as signposts. So I decided, well, that's a brilliant approach. And every time a paranoid thought about my children would come up, I would say, okay, I'm dreaming. And what I did also, because it was very helpful, and I think it's very practical, because you can use this for anything. Anything that's your trigger. If it's money, if it's aging, if it's climate change or politics or whatever it is, you can use this. You know what your triggers are. So when those thoughts come in, you use it like the dashboard light. You pull the car over, you stop whatever you're doing for just a moment. You tell yourself, I'm dreaming. But then you do a reality, I call it like a validity or a reality check. You ask yourself a few questions, very practical. Is there anything new happening around my kids? That's what I would say. When was the last time I talked to them? Yesterday. When is the next time I'm going to talk to them? Tomorrow. Is there any indicator that there's any problem? No. Do I need to ask their dad, or do I need to text them real quick something just to check in? And if I felt really super compelled, maybe I would say, hey, son, Ray, Paul, just thinking about you. Just send them a text and see if they sent anything back. How you doing? Something like that. But I only allowed myself to do that if it was just so compelling that I couldn't not. And I was very, very, very stern with myself about not imposing my paranoia on them. So I had to have some reason to even do that, if that makes sense. First, it was important for me to clear my fear. Even if there was a problem, I had to first clear my paranoia and my fear. This process worked really, really well. And it could work well for you on any subject that you're normally triggered by. You just use it. You say, okay, you turn the tables. Instead of you, ego, hooking me in to your system with this image that you know is going to get me. Ha ha, I'm not going to let you get me. I'm going to use it. It's like I'm going to be the martial artist that's going to turn this energy around and use this energy to wake myself up. And that's another thought that I've had more even than now than earlier. That is, it is very powerful to say, these are not my thoughts. These are not my thoughts. I'm a holy Son of God. If you go by the Course language, I'm the one self. I'm the perceiver. I'm the awareness. I'm the spiritual being. I'm not a body. I'm the one that sees. I'm the one that knows. I'm the energy of knowing, of seeing, of beingness. Those are not my thoughts. Those come and go. Those are not, and if they're painful, they're not mine. I don't need to own them. I don't need to fix them. I don't need to forgive them even. In the Course we talk about forgiveness. I don't need to forgive that person. Those aren't even my thoughts. My real thoughts are the thoughts I think with God, the Course in Miracles says. I don't need to deal with it anymore. And the more I can do that, the more I feel like I get freer and freer and freer. That it's a conveyor belt, I like to say, that the ego has lined up of these thoughts and situations and problems and past and future. And it's a never-ending journey if I make it that way. If I sign up for its job description, then I will be busy forever. So sometimes I have to deal with the energy because it's so powerful and intense. And also the other thing about that is those moments, there's usually some deeper insight that comes on the other side of it. So it's very valuable. Not only is it just the only thing that's really available that is helpful, it's also this Christmas present. Because at the end I get some higher awareness that then informs so much more. So one of the awarenesses that came to me recently through a process of doing that, with a lot of self-loathing that was coming up, just so much self-loathing. And it would be also entangled with an old situation. And my mind would somehow, even though it knew it was ridiculous in a way, and so irrelevant to my life today, would just be so fixated compulsively on this old situation and relationship. And finally, at the end of this suffering period, there were multiple things that I came out of it with. But one of them was how that relationship, which always shows up in my mind as bodies and agendas and vanity and power and hierarchy and all of that, right? Every time it would show up, a new awareness came to my mind at the end of being with that hateful, guilty energy. That all it really amounts to is a defense against the truth of God. That's all it amounts to. It, in and of itself, has no meaning. And it's just like this straw man problem that has all the fireworks and the juice to keep me distracted from the voice of God within me. And the way it came in, it really landed. You know, I'm sure I've read that, but this felt different. It was getting to the end of this particular trip around the washing machine, as I say. We get agitated on the wash cycle. It was coming to the end of that, going through the spin, being out in the sun finally to dry, that this awareness came in. And it felt so true. And that is clarifying for us. It's clarifying what all of this is about so that we can easily just laugh at it. Just, not make it a problem, not make it a big deal. It's like literally a smoke screen. It's a smoke screen. And so, to get to the end of these intense, energetic flare-ups, these moments where we might have to spend a day or two in the fetal position, just feeling and, hearing ourselves and maybe having a question or two to help facilitate the unwinding of it, but just being with it, really, allowing it to be. The end of that is usually one or several very helpful new ahas, clarity about this illusion. So those are the two oars that I think about. And then the other thing that's important is that we have a North Star that guides our navigation across this awakening path, this journey across the water. And so that's when I always tell people, peg your star very high. And this is way beyond manifesting the things in our lives, like we talked about last time, that show up, the forms in our lives. But the root of all the forms that we want to manifest should be peace, this lightness of being, this joy, this happiness. And so we have our North Star, we have our oars. And that means that everything that happens in my day is serving somehow my process to embody, to undo what's blocking me from this joy. No matter what's happening, it's now exactly perfect because it's part of my plan to get to this joy, to get to this happiness. I think I've stretched the metaphor as far as I probably can. But the other component of it, of going as peacefully as we can through this journey, in my view anyway, is finding ways to be in service. Finding ways to express our authentic truth and extend the love in us, the peace in us. And, being forward thinking without holding too tight to a future, if that makes sense. And the reason I feel this is so important is that it becomes a accelerator in our process. And maybe it's also a buffer or something that is protective while we still need it against the strong undertow of the past and the guilt and the shame and the fear and the anger and the rage and the hatred. It's very easy to wallow and to be overcome by inertia. So if you prioritize being in service, even in the job that you're already in, if you recognize it as some way that love extends through you, even if it's just, something that you thought was too insignificant. Nothing is insignificant. It's all how you show up in that work. So make that part of your service. Start a podcast, play beautiful music. Just, spend time in meditation, go to the store with a peaceful heart. Excuse me. I think that's what I wanted to say today. And I really hope these are helpful. And if you have any comments of your own about what I've said or things you'd like to add or disagree with even, please feel free to comment. And you're always welcome to reach out and let me know what has been on your mind as far as awakening or healing, and what you'd like to hear me talk about, what you'd like to talk about. I'd love to hear what you're sharing. So this is all a big collaboration, this whole awakening business. It's very much an orchestration where we all play our parts for each other. So I wish you lots of peace, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.